the day before you're going to go take your check ride, you want to, or sometime before, then you want to go through the aircraft maintenance records, and you put little sticky notes on the annual 100-hour altimeter-static system.
That way I can just go right to it and show them?
Yep.
Okay.
And then you won't be fumbling around like you've never seen them before.
Yeah.
You go through it like you know what you have. You got to have those with you.
He won't mind that I have them tabbed out and everything?
No,
Okay.
that's a plus. You want to show up with your library, and why you guys have all your stuff. I have an awful lot of the FAA publications on my iPad. If you have them on the iPad, bring a few books with you. So you got the paper ones that show that they're paid and used. And I
don't have an iPad, and I actually don't have a laptop, so I'll be going there with a backpack probably.
Okay.
of books, because that's all I have. So.
Take your library with you and have it there, and it's got some tabs in it, some underlining, and it looks like you've been opened it up and used it. I've had people show up, and one or two of the books are still in the plastic wrapper that it came in.
Never
been unwrapped, never been looked at.
Bad start, huh?
Anyway, you get the maintenance records marked so you know all the inspections are required, that the airplane is indeed airworthy. As best you can tell. Be familiar with the AD compliance record. There'll be a page in there that tells what the ADs are, and some of them are just one time, and some of them are recurring. Come up every 50 hours, every 100 hours, once a year, sometimes every 3,000 hours. It has to be done. So if you know that you're not taking an airplane that's not airworthy,
yep.
That makes one happy. Make sure the airplane's clean, no coffee cups, drink bottles rattling around under the seat. The airplane's presentable, if you're presentable, dressed business casual, I guess you could say. Don't show up in a t-shirt and a pair of shorts.
Yeah,
so some old ratty tennis shoes.
Shirt, tie.
Wouldn't hurt, but
khakis.
Just, something presentable. Don't show up with a old ratty t-shirt and a pair of shorts and sneakers. Be on time, punctual, and they'll sign in and they'll give you a little ID badge to wear, and they'll take you and put you in a room like this, on a smaller exam room. You get your library out, get your application, it's on IACRA, have your username, password, FTN number, and you're ready. Get yourself calmed down a little bit, and the inspector will come in and introduce themselves and a little chit chat about airplanes, how you got started, and how they got started. Kind of light conversation, get you relaxed and comfortable with the guy a little bit. And then they'll go through your application, your logbook, your airman certificate, your medical, your ID card with a photo on it, and they'll do the IACRA thing to get the application reviewed and make sure the instructor signed it. And then they'll give you the ground rules of here's how we want to do this today. Here's a broad overview of what's going to happen. We're going to sit here and talk about it a while. And of course, corrective test standards is the guide. He will probably have a document that he's prepared to put the stuff in out of here in an order that sort of flows. A little more time efficient. So he'll have some notes more than likely. Supposed to have, we got to have this required for the designee to have a plan of action. And he'll tell you where the drink machine is and the restrooms, all the comfort facilities, and say this thing's going to be done, of course, with practical test standards that you want to talk about in a while, and then before you go flight, I have a pre-flight briefing and a little overview of what the flight's going to be like. And that if he asks you a question that you don't understand what information he's looking for, then you ask him to rephrase the question, and he'll be happy to. We're supposed to think about how we ask a question so that we communicate and there's no misunderstanding. Should be a specific question, has a specific answer. Maybe a little essay question here and there, but it ought to have a specific reason, specific information they're trying to get you to pass on to them. So he should explain that. You can ask him to clarify the question. Do not hesitate if you don't understand what the inspector is looking for. Let's see. They will, I should have brought one with me, because I have it all written down, so I don't go, you'll have the opportunity to use your library. If he asks you a question you don't have an answer to, let you go look it up in your library. Nobody knows everything.
Okay.
And
I think that's our biggest fear is that, they're expecting us to answer every question they ask. And
you will not be able to, so don't worry about it.
okay.
You got to be able to answer the preponderance of them, most of them. There could be something specific that one question might cause it to be a disapproval, but by and large, you're looking for overall knowledge, grasp, understanding, the correlation of the information that you've been studying. It'll make you an effective instructor. So if there's a question that you don't know, ask him. If he doesn't tell you, you can look at your library. He says, I don't know the answer to that question. Can I look at my library and know where to find it? And so just go to your source material and find what you need. You got AIM and an FAR, and your FAA publications, or the Jepson book is a good one. Go look it up and find it. They will ask if you have the aircraft maintenance records with you, and of course you will. View limiting device is not necessary on this check line. They'll be taking notes. He'll probably tell you I'm going to be taking some notes. When the pen comes out, doesn't mean anything bad's happened. It's just he's checking off his little checklist, make sure he covers everything. Then the briefing will be complete, and he'll probably ask you if you have any questions. If you got any questions about how the day's going to go, or what's expected of you, ask him to clarify it, or give you a little better idea of what to expect. Then he'll say, okay, if you're ready, we'll start the test. And he'll commence asking you some questions. So we'll start out here at the beginning of the practical test standards. And all this stuff up in the front, this introduction, a good thing for you to read. Most people go right behind them, look at it. But this thing, the practical test standards concept, all the source material from the FAA where the answers are. They expect you to have the information. Use of the PTS, special emphasis areas. They're going to emphasize these. It's on page 8 in my
Yep, page 9 on mine.
Positive aircraft control, positive exchange of control, spin and stall awareness, collision avoidance, wake turbulence, lasso, runway incursion, CFIT, on down through the list.
Now, are these all things that we're going to sit down and discuss, or is this something that
He's going to cherry pick the stuff.
Okay.
He's going to, they can't ask you about everything or you would never get done with the oral. You'd sit there talking for all day.
So
because it's just a lot of material, as you well know.
Yes, that's one of the overwhelming things is it's a lot to know.
Yes, it's a big bunch of information that you're required to have. But he's probably not going to have to go down this list and ask about every one of these. But some of it comes up while you're out flying. He might ask you about wake turbulence or avoidance.
Okay, so not all of this is ground stuff. You could, do some of this in the air.
The oral continues through the entire test. There is the oral portion that you do at the desk in the building. And while you're out flying, he may say, what would you do if? Or what if a jet takes off ahead of you?
Yeah,
Say, where's the wake turbulence going to be behind that aircraft?
Okay.
What are your considerations in taking off behind the heavy jet? He will observe your single pilot resource management, so you keep your stuff stowed, have what's needed available. He'll observe your checklist usage and so on. So all this will be in there. Some of it he might ask a question about, some of it's just going to observe what you do. Flight instructor responsibilities, of course you need to know what those those are going to be the examiner's responsibility, what's satisfactory performance and what's unsatisfactory. All this is good stuff here to review. So you're familiar with what a practical test is all about and how it, what the rules are. That's basically what it is. Then he'll end up with his plan of action over here on the fundamentals of instruction. And you'll see the note up at the top here. I'm on page 29, area operation 1.
Yeah, I'm in technical subject areas. There you go. Fundamentals of instruction.
You see the note up at the top of the page
Examiner
there?
must select task E
Yeah, he must do task E,
and one other task.
which is instructor responsibilities and professionalism. They've got to pick one other of these to talk about. Because you can't discuss everything. They cherry pick. They test your knowledge here, and they check your knowledge there, and they take, you know. And now if he finds the area of weakness, he might dig in a little further in the learning process.
Now, like my PTS right now, to help me, I put little notes in here
Good.
just to kind of refresh my memory. That's not like cheating, is it?
No, that's good.
Okay.
No, that's wonderful. That will show that you've done some work, that you put some
Okay.
effort
Because
into
like
it.
for helping students, I put find out what motivates them, like
There you
why
go.
they want to fly.
Good.
Just a memory jogger, but I didn't know if that would be like.
That will be viewed favorably.
Okay.
You put some thought into it. You see, so I'm sitting here, I'm impressed.
I
You
didn't
put
know.
some thought
I didn't
into
want
it.
to get in trouble for actually like having answers right next to the not answers but memory refreshers right next to the
No
where
problem.
they're at.
No problem.
Okay.
That's a good sign that you have given some thought to this and put a little effort into it, and it means you probably know what you're talking about. If you need to have yourself a little pad, and if it comes down to what must be on the aircraft, there's what documents have to be, you want to write arrow down.
Yeah.
Sure.
Okay.
Sure. You judge that. You gotta have it. So we're going to do task E.
Okay.
Talks about instructor responsibilities, and that might be a essay question. What do you think your responsibilities are as a flight instructor?
Okay. Me as a flight instructor, I'm supposed to find out what motivates a student to learn to fly.
Mm-hmm.
I'm supposed to find out his end goal and guide him towards that. So if he wants to be, an airline pilot or if his ultimate goal is to become a flight instructor, then ultimately I'm supposed to guide him and show him how he can get there and help him. I'm supposed to provide good instruction for him, so that means me coming prepared to a lesson and knowing what's going to go on in a lesson prior to him getting there.
Okay.
And then ultimately I'm supposed to use his time and money wisely because it's his time and it's his money. So ultimately I'm supposed to prepare so I don't waste his time or money. Because it's a big thing to students. Because it is expensive. It's not cheap to learn how to fly.
How do you help the student learn? What are you going to do to help the student learn?
I'm trying to think. I got very vague right now. I got a wide range here. There's not one specific answer for this. Is there?
No, there's not.
Okay.
It's a number of things. Give me a couple of your thoughts.
Work off of his motivation and why am I thinking of perception and insights? I'm thinking perception.
That's another question
Yeah.
somewhere along the line in this arena.
Stuck in my head though.
You going to give them your undivided attention?
Yes, we
You
give them
understood?
undivided attention.
You're gonna provide them guidance with the materials that they need to study
Yep.
and stuff they don't need to mess with.
And give them quality instruction time, so when they're on, when I'm on their time, you know, I'm not focused somewhere else or
Yeah.
focused on the student that's coming, maybe coming right after them.
You have a lesson plan,
I do have some lesson
Okay.
plans, yes. Not
So-
on everything, but on most things.
but with your student, you're not just gonna have those for use for the
Mm-hmm.
play instructor check ride. You're gonna use a lesson plan to guide your time with that student, so you use the time efficiently, use the student's resources efficiently, and have a specific goal for each lesson. Most of the time, the syllabus is used, should be.
Okay.
If you go somewhere where they don't have some kind of syllabus, you need to move on. You're gonna have a lesson plan. You will brief them. At the end of the previous lesson, you'll tell them, here's what we're going to do next time. Here's what I want you to study next time. For instance, you have a student, a pre-solo student, that has done all the climbs and turns and descents and slope flight and stalls and all the air work is coming along, and it's time to introduce ground reference maneuvers. So you tell them, next time we fly, we're going to introduce ground reference maneuvers. I want you to read in the airplane flying handbook the chapter that deals. I can't tell you what it is. I don't know either. I'd have to look it up.
Yeah.
You tell them I'm telling you what chapter to read and what to study before the next lesson, and you'll have a pre-flight briefing before the next lesson. He can tell you what he's learned, ask you any questions that may have arisen in their study. And then you have the opportunity to explain to them the concepts they've been reading about and describe what you're going to do in the lesson that day. So the learning process is aided by you having a plan, you having the student prepared, or you told them how to prepare for that lesson. They don't go home and read stuff. You'll find that you will say, now this is going to save you money. I motivate the student. If you study this stuff, then you're going to spend less time with the Hobbs meter turning.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to spend less time paying me for ground instruction, and you'll learn quicker and better. It'll help you progress better in the program. So you're going to spend less money if you study what I asked you to study. And they'll show up and say, did you read the section on ground reference maneuvers last night? Well, somebody came over and we got talking and watched the ball game. No, I didn't. Well, and then they showed up unprepared. I have sat, instead of flying with students, I've sat and read them the section that they were supposed to read. Yep. And once for that, they usually come prepared the next time. You set the stage, you show up prepared, you help them prepare for the lesson, and then you find what their level of understanding is of the concepts in the ground reference maneuver are prior to the flight, clear up any misunderstanding, and then you're prepared to go fly and teach the student in the airplane. So that helps them learn. And of course, then you come down to B, that's providing adequate instruction. Where do you get your standards of performance? What are you going to expect out of this student?
At first, the end goal would be to get them to the PTS standards, but obviously at first they're not going to be a PTS standard.
Yeah.
So you can kind of, as an instructor, from student to student, create your own and narrow it down to the PTS standard.
Okay.
So, like for a straight and level flight, and instead of for steep turns, for example, instead of them expecting to hold 100 feet. For PTS standards, give them 300 feet at first.
Okay.
And then, narrow in on just PTS
Okay.
standards.
Very, very good. At the end of the flight, one of your jobs is to evaluate the student.
Mm-hmm.
How do you evaluate him at the end of this flight? You better do ground reference maneuvers you've never done before. First flight. How do you evaluates your students' performance, what kind of yardstick you are? You gave me an idea, plus or minus 300 feet on the steep turn.
Yeah, I wouldn't evaluate them too hard, especially if it was their first time.
Mm-hmm.
I would try to give them, praise and motivation to let them know that, hey, for your first time, you did good. This is our ultimate goal. This is what we're going to. So next time, it may be a little more strict on altitude or bank or heading or whatever it may be, and let them know ahead of time that this is what we need to focus on narrowing down.
Okay. You're going to evaluate. Primarily, does their performance indicate they understand the concept of a turnabout point, for instance? How to stay in the same county with the point that they've selected, or even selected for them on the first go at it. Do they understand the concept of the steepest bank is there at the point of the turn, going downwind with the highest ground speed, and the shallowest bank going upwind? Do they see that? Do they understand the concept is demonstrated by their performance? Then you can talk about their skill at holding the altitude, maintaining equal radius, and what they need to do, what their errors are that they need to correct. What do you suppose some common errors would be on the turnabout point?
Either not banking enough when you're coming in, or climbing and descending too much, or not keeping airspeed where it needs to be, or getting too close or too far away from their point.
Okay, so what do you want to tell them they need to do to correct these errors in the evaluation? Trying to hold altitude in this turn. They got the thermometer between the point on the ground and the altimeter and the pitch attitude of the airplane a little more closely. This introduces a division of attention they haven't been dealing with before.
You could try to tell them that you need to be 90% outside, but we still want you 10% inside. Looking at your altimeter and making sure you're staying on your altitude.
Okay.
And then if you're not, the corrective actions for either gaining or losing altitude, whatever their error is.
Well, we'll make a note here so we have to remember what we've done here.
That's why I'm making all kinds of notes here.
Okay, sure. And minimizing student frustrations. How are you going to minimize the frustration? They try and try and try. And you remember when you were first starting to fly,
I remember I was frustrated. This is what I would do, and this is what my instructor did. If I got frustrated with something and I couldn't learn, I just couldn't grasp it, we would just move on to something else. Normally something a little easier. Like for me, again, commercial lazy eights were tough for me.
Yeah.
I just couldn't grasp it. So we moved on to Shondells, which Shondells, for me, I picked up pretty quickly, and that kind of got my motivation back up. And then we moved back to lazy eights, and then
very good.
Motivation was higher. I actually understood and got the grasp of lazy eights.
And if they can't do something, and they're getting frustrated with, then you're back to the tabletop to discuss the principles of whatever the maneuver is, and the understanding of the effects of the controls and the effects of the division of attention, to address their lack of understanding about the path of the airplane over the ground, reference to ground speed. Because if they understand why the maneuver is turning out the way it is, then they can move to correct it. So some of the frustrations come from the fact they don't understand what's going on. So you're back to a little bit of ground time, a little bit more time in the book to discussing them and over to make sure they have a concept.
And I think that was my problem with lazy eights, was I didn't understand why, what was the purpose of a lazy eight. I didn't understand why we were doing this.
Very good. That's a good one. We will come to that objective sooner or later. Let's see, professionalism. That's part of your instructor responsibilities is to be professional. What does that include? What would be your remark of a professional?
When I was a student, what was really degrading is when my first instructor would show up in gym shorts and t-shirt. So that was very,
there you go.
For me as a student, that was very degrading to me and very unprofessional on his part, I thought.
Okay.
This is a private pilot student at that point, and he was always showing up late. I actually switched instructors fairly quickly from him, and I'm glad I did.
Yeah.
But
your conduct, your professionalism includes you're going to show up on time, you're going to be prepared. You shouldn't show up and ask the student, what did we do last lesson?
yeah, that was I had that happen a
I bet
lot.
you asked that.
I had that happen a lot. Did we do shorts and socks last lesson, or was that with Jacob? I can't remember.
Yeah.
And then no, that was with me. So yeah, very unprofessional.
So you show up dressed appropriately. And I saw a lot of instructors very casually dressed and sloppily dressed. And I would say you want to get paid like a professional, you want to get the respect in the industry as being a professional, you got to look like a professional. That doesn't mean you got to wear coat and tie every day. The one school I was at, we did. We had a coat and a tie, and we could only take the coat off when we got in the airplane. That was in the summertime. You got to be professional, you got to be prepared, you got to keep track of your students' progress, you got to give a professional, precise evaluation. Here were your errors. You were trying to hold the nose of the airplane up with the rudder instead of back pressure in the turn. You were failing to hold enough back pressure in the turn to maintain your altitude, or some people, when they roll in the turn, they put in too much back pressure and they end up climbing. So your specific evaluation or critique of your student is part of your professional repertoire. That you have to be observant and think about what you're going to say to the student about the evaluation, what they've done today. And you mentioned something earlier that's very much correct, that you want the student to have some success that lesson.
Yes.
You want them to have something that they did well.
Their first time, their first time that they're gonna make mistakes and they're gonna make errors. But instead of focusing on the negative, you might want to mention those errors, but because you don't want them to keep making that mistake over and over again because it's all primacy. But you also want to give them something positive to take home.
You got to work it out so they have some success. And this after you've flown with somebody for a number of hours, you still keep on that trend, and you work with them for the private, now you're working with them on a commercial. You try to arrange the day, the lesson, so that by the end of the hour it's time to go back to the airport, that they have had something that they've done well worked out good for them. Might be something that they do very well every time, but you get to stroke them a little bit and compliment them on what they did well, and you're supposed to do the positive feedback first. This went well, that went well, you really used the checklist very good. Like the way the takeoff was really good, you're right on the center line. The turnabout point, the altitude control is a little weak because you're overcorrecting, you're over-controlling it. You're not putting in a proportional amount of back pressure for the amount of bank you're using going on the turn. And then you bring in the negative portion. give them a stroke a little bit, make sure they go away feeling like they did something right that day, because it's very frustrating. Okay, very good, very good. But specifics. You can't say, well, it was a real good flight or it wasn't a very good flight. Specifics. What did they do well specifically? What was weak
Okay, so you can't
specifically?
just say, yeah, you did good today, I'll see you tomorrow.
Yeah, yeah. Let's see. Talk about professional development. What do you suppose that would be? What would that be for you as a flight instructor?
For me as a flight instructor, would that be me developing a professional image, or
Yeah.
me projecting to the student and then the student starts developing
That's
a
you
professional image?
developing your professionalism
Okay.
as you go forward in your career as an instructor. Go seminars?
Oh, okay, that kind of stuff. I was like, well, if I'm doing everything the right first time, you know, there shouldn't be much to change. But okay, so you can go to seminars.
You're always trying to seek out a little way to grow professionally yourself and to do what you're doing better. And I'm still there. I'm still working on it. I've been doing it a long time. You're always seeking ways to improve your communication skills with your student, to improve your technique, to improve your knowledge of the FARs and the environment and a lot of the airspace and equipment in the airplanes, changing rapidly.
Okay, so
these
like
days.
yeah,
So you gotta stay on top of what's going on in the industry and always seeking ways to help you communicate better with your student, to explain things better, to use better words and terminology and stuff in communicating with the student. Okay, that covers task E. We could spend an hour just talking about that one. We don't really have the time. Let's go back here. We're supposed to do task E and one other one. You got a whole laundry list of stuff here, of course. Assessment and critique. You need to get in that aviation instructor's handbook and see what the books take is on the teaching process and learning process, assessment and critique and so on, risk management. Because they may ask about any of this stuff. What do you think in human behavior? We'll talk about that a little bit here. Task A.
Okay.
Human needs and motivation. What would that be?
Human needs is like there's a hierarchy, so they need to. The first one would be physical. They need to get rest. They need to eat, sleep. They need to drink water, be hydrated. I think their next one is safety. They need to feel safe. If you don't feel safe flying with an instructor, then normally they're not going to learn. They're going to be worried about their safety instead of worrying about learning. Maybe going out of order here.
It's okay.
But social, they need to feel like they belong.
Yep, good point.
That's a real big one because the first airport I was at, you walk in the door, no one says hi to you, everyone's doing their own thing. You really don't feel like you belong there, and you just want to leave. So you're dreading the whole hour and a half that you're there. You're like, I just want to leave. I just want to leave.
Wow.
So, so yeah, so the sense of belonging is definitely has to be there.
Well, let's see.
Is there more we keep going? Or?
Well, defense mechanisms. Tell me about defense mechanisms.
Okay, defense mechanisms. It's basically the human body protecting itself from something that it doesn't want to cope with. So, like example, like your repression is where something happened and you really don't want to remember it, so you repress it in the back of your mind, and eventually it goes away. So you can, there's rationalization. that one would be where you, this might be getting this one confused with something else, but I think it's where you project your faults onto something or someone else. So like if we come in and you have a bad landing, and you blame it on the wind,
Yep.
then I know you're projecting your faults onto something else. Or you could blame it on me as the instructor, and now you're projecting your bad landing onto me.
Okay. It's the airplane's fault, it's the wind's fault, it's the instructor didn't tell me.
Yeah, that's a big one. The instructor never taught me that one, never taught me that, or never covered that material.
And they get, because they're frustrated and they're having a little difficulty, they will get angry with you once in a while. And you just gotta be a professional and the adult in the room and calmly work through it. That we've covered this, we've talked about it, you've read about it in a book and a reading that I assigned to you. And this is why this is really going along. You get into the evaluation and critique of their use of the controls and their understanding, back to the understanding of what they're trying to do. They understand the concept, and it's the physical movement of the controls and so on. What would be some barriers to effective communication?
This would be, the biggest one is the lack of common experience.
Okay.
So if you have no, you ever sit down at a table and you don't know anybody and no one has any common experience, you'll realize the table is just kind of quiet.
Yeah.
And kind of awkward. And then there's also the use of abstract words that could get confusing from person to person. So like the other day, one of my friends said, "Can I take off?" And my first response in my head was, "Well, what's the weather? Like, can you take off?" But what he meant was, can he take off work? Go on vacation.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, exactly.
Right,
so,
right.
Two different meanings to the same word.
Yes.
So your student may not understand the point you're trying to get across because you're thinking of one meaning and he or she's thinking of something else.
Very good. Very good. All through your aviation experience, you'll run into some of that stuff about using the correct terminology to avoid the misunderstandings. Like we say in the exchange of controls, I have a control, you have a control. Don't say I have a plane, or I have the airplane, because that might be out the window.
Yeah, exactly. That might be, because I actually do say that, but I have the airplane in sight.
Yes.
So you might think I have the airplane.
Yes. So terminology is real important. Excellent. Your language and choice of phraseology is important so you do communicate with the person. Different people at different instructional levels or education levels and backgrounds have different communication styles, and so you want to tailor your communications to the person you're talking to, so you communicate with them as an individual, as a person, as a separate entity. You'll find that as a flight instructor, you're an amateur psychologist. That everybody's different. Everybody has different means of communicating. They're receptive to different methods, and have different attitudes about it. Okay. You were talking about perceptions and insights. What are those?
Perceptions are the basics of how we learn, so it'd be like sight, hearing, like smell, all your senses, and normally a person will learn best when they're using multiple senses at the same time.
Yes.
So.
Okay, so, but they get a perception, and then maybe they develop insight. What is a perception?
Can't remember the definition off the top of my head, but I do know where to find it.
Yeah,
if I can use my library here.
Yes, sir.
one thing I'm finding is it's really hard to remember all the definitions to this FOI.
It's a lot of information. It's a lot of stuff.
Chapter 3. Alrighty. One thing, this book doesn't lay it out as well as the FAA book does. Shaping, cutting through, sensory history, working memory, perceptions right there. Perceptions which occur when meaning is given to sensations are the basis for all of learning. The sensation of hearing a landing gear warning horn has no meaning until your student can associate it with a purpose.
Okay, then what's an insight?
An insight are a mental grouping of perceptions into meaningful wholes. Leading students to insights is one of our primary responsibilities as a flight instructor.
Okay, very
And they
good.
go and give a couple of examples down here that I've highlighted.
Very good. Review that stuff carefully. There are some buzzwords and terminologies in there that they use. I see here that they have factors that affect perception, the physical organism, goals and values, self-concept, time and opportunity, the element of threat. It's not something that I have found that I need to spend a whole lot of time getting that deep into it, but it's in the book. You're responsible for the knowledge. It is not one of my strong suits in defining it exactly in the terms out of the book. But although it's a building block concept of learning, that you start with a little perception and perceptions, plural, and then you're going to develop that into some insight into the big picture of what's really going on and why it's happening. What sort of teaching processes do you have here? You have different people learn different ways. Some people are visual, some people a little more from what they hear, and some it's more what they see. Some learn by doing. What are the different teaching processes that you have?
You have the lecture, which would be good for auditory learners, which is not my strong suit.
Mm-hmm.
But some people's strong suit. I'm more of a visual learner, so I like things on the whiteboard. So I think if you got lesson plans and you can draw it on the board, and you have good diagrams, that's how I'm going to learn it because it's visual. Yeah. You have guided discussions where you can just sit down.
Okay.
One-on-one is not necessarily at the whiteboard or presenting anything, but you may have props and stuff that you can use, and you may be sitting down and looking through their textbook and guiding them through it. And,
you guys probably have some computer-assisted learning.
Yep.
Here you have some computer-based instruction for people.
Yeah, that's something that you can sit down and do with them, but you can also give that and let them take that home with them as well, and they can use that at home.
Okay. Okay, very good. You got the lecture method, and you got the guided discussion, computer assisted demonstration, performance that you show them the maneuver, you do some more, and let them give it a try.
They used to call it, when my instructor would demonstrate it, I always call it monkey see, monkey do.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Okay, let's move along to aeromedical factors here. And this is area of operation 2. Says the examiner must select B and M, and read the note books, just so you know, he's got to ask you to be in at least one other.
Okay, so you're on,
I'm on 33 in my book is area of operation.
okay, technical subject areas,
Yes.
okay.
Runway incursion avoidance.
So examiner was title B and M. B is runway incursion avoidance.
And they've got a whole bunch of stuff here, but what do you want to teach a student about broad overview of how to avoid runway incursions?
Broad overview is, comes down to situational awareness.
Yes.
Gotta have situational awareness when you're out there taxiing, you're coming in, coming out to take off and landing. You gotta be aware of listening on the radios and know where the other traffic is, especially if you're not at a towered airport. At non-towered airports, and they're not required to have communications. I see people, at first I was wondering what they were doing. I'd see people doing 360s before they taxied on the runway. I'm like, what are they doing? And they're looking for people.
Yeah.
Getting situated, looking in the pattern while they're doing 360.
Okay.
One of my rules of thumb is to always have an airport diagram.
Thank you very much. That's a good one.
And then not so much at smaller airports, but bigger airports, you got the tower, use it. If you need progressive taxi, don't be afraid to ask for progressive taxi. That's what they're there for.
Mm-hmm.
With the diagram, I always try to plan my route before I call them up. If I know I'm going to runway 7, so okay, this is the most direct way to runway 7, so that's what I'm going to plan. So then I always mark what they tell me. And that way I know what I'm doing. If I forget, I have it marked down on my new board.
Okay, and the runway incursion are primarily concerned about towered airports.
Okay.
Where people get on the runway when they have not been cleared onto the runway, or they enter a taxiway that they've been told to hold short of. Signage and markings, big subject area. In a runway incursion avoidance, they've improved the signage and the markings on the airports a lot over the years, and your student needs to know what those signs and what those markers on the pavement mean.
Would it
adhere to them? If they're unsure of their position, stop and tell the tower they want progressive, and just as you said.
Would it be wise for me to have pictures of runway markings and stuff so I can flip it open and go over it?
You've got it in the Aeronautical Information Manual.
Mm-hmm.
All those signs and markings are in there. He's probably not going to have you drag those out to discuss this unless he wants to ask you what's on the signs and markings. I mean, he may have a page of them and say, what's this, what's this, what's this? What are you going to tell the student? Listen to this. But for your student, in trying to teach them about runway incursion avoidance, is you have an airport diagram every time. All at your home airport, yes. You know the signage and markings, you get your clearance to taxi, you write it down, check the route you've been cleared to taxi on before you start moving. So you know, like I said, you want to draw it on there, you know what you've been cleared to do. And if there's any doubt in their mind, they got to stop the airplane and get progressive instructions. Let's see. Task M. Logbook entries and certificate endorsements. If you're going to solo your student, what logbook entry or certificate endorsements you have to make before they solo?
Before he solos, he needs to, I need to have his pre-solo knowledge written test out of the way. I have to endorse him that I've given him the can't remember the exact right number right now.
Well, hardly
But-
anybody does,
Yeah, I mean, well, that's
but you
why
know
they're
where to
written
find it.
down. They know where to find it. Saying that, you know, I've taught him straight and level, climb descent, I've taught him
Sure.
aeronautical decision making,
Sure.
I've taught him how to scan for traffic, and I, you know that he's competent. I'm signing off that he's competent to go solo.
Where do you do this sign off?
Normally, in the back of their logbooks.
You'll put it in a logbook, yeah.
Yeah, some have them already in there, some don't. You might have to cut and paste and,
Okay.
or,
So you have to endorse their logbook for solo in that make and model airplane?
yes.
Okay. What else do you have to sign off?
Have to sign off that I've gone over their written test with them and
Okay.
we've corrected it to 100%.
Okay.
Um,
You have your student pilot certificate with you?
Mine, yes.
Well, you got
sign
you
off
got a
their
commercial right now.
Yeah.
Do you have a student pilot certificate? Some people keep that stuff. I got every one I ever had.
I do too, but I think it's out in my truck, 'cause
Okay.
that's where my logbook
Okay,
is.
that's okay.
But yeah, I think I have my
On the
logbook.
back of the student pilot certificate, you
Yep,
gotta
okay.
sign off,
They're,
then endorse them for solo.
yeah,
So you solo the students, you gotta sign the back of their student pilot certificate. And then you gotta put the endorsement in the logbook on the solo. On the endorsement in the logbook, you can put limitations if you want to. They can't solo with more than 10 knots of wind or 5 knots of crosswind or something like that. That would be up to you what you wanna do with that. But you can control that so it's not open-ended, that they just come out there and solo anytime. What other kind of sign-off do you have to do if your student goes for private?
may have to do an additional solo after 90 days.
Okay.
Depending.
Where do you sign off for solo when your first initial sign-off has expired, 90 days has passed? Where do you make that next entry?
That is a good question. I don't know the answer to that one.
Okay, you've already endorsed their student pilot certificate once.
Yes.
You don't do that the second time. You
You
make
just-
an entry in the logbook that they're authorized to.
Okay.
So they'll extend that 90 days.
It's another endorsement. You don't put it over top of any other one,
Yeah.
are you?
Yeah. They all need to be visible, because when they go see the examiner wants to see the logbook endorsement for solo cross country. 90 days went by, they need another sign on for solo. You authorize them to take the private pilot knowledge test. You've recommended them for the private pilot practical test. Okay, you need to know those basic sign-offs. Okay. Being in at least one other, what else we got in here? Aircraft weight and balance, he'll go over the weight and balance of the airplane with you. But in broad brush, you're taking a 172 RG. Where is the datum line on that airplane?
I am not sure. Haven't, one thing I need to do is brush up on this airplane. So right here, section 6, datum is firewall or front face, station 00.
Okay, it's firewall of the
So it's
airplane.
the firewall at the airplane, yes sir.
Okay, very good. Everything that they put in the airplane is measured from that datum, inches aft or forward of the datum. And wander around in this just a little bit. So it shows you here the station 37 is what they call it. That's the pilot seats and front passenger. They measure after the firewall to the middle of the pilot seat, in the middle of the travel of the seat fore and aft. Boom, that's where it is, 37 inches from that firewall. We took a tape measure from the firewall back to the middle of the pilot. That's what it is, it's 37 inches. This one's 73. baggage and so on going out. You're getting farther and farther from power. Well, it's just a means to determine what impact that weight is going to have on the center of gravity. So we got to start measuring from somewhere. And they start with the empty airplane. They put each main gear on a scale. You got little scale, this big, one under this main, one under that main, and a scale under the nose gear. And they get the weight off each one. And this one's measured from the datum, the end, to get stuff forward of the firewall, like when they put the engine on there. Or if they put a prop, or a different prop, the weight is different, it'd be a negative. Everything else goes from here back, and they determine the weight of the airplane. And then they got this thing here, left main, left wheel, right wheel, nose wheel, come up with weight here, and a total weight, and then through this formula they put it all together and come up with the aircraft empty weight, rip and center of gravity based on inches after the datum of this weight, inches forward of the datum of that weight. So we got a total weight here, and how's it distributed? They measure from the datum to that one to get an arm, to this one to get an arm, and from there they determine where the center of gravity is on the empty airplane. Then everything else is added to that as you do your weight and balance to figure the weight and balance for the flight that you're going. Principles of flight. Why did they put a rudder on the airplane?
To counteract the yaw.
Correct. What kind of yaw?
Airplane.
Does it have a name besides just yaw? Let me put it this way, what makes the airplane yaw? Or the other way to ask the question is, why do we use the aileron and the rudder together to make the airplane turn?
So it's coordinated? So you can coordinate turn?
Why does it need to be coordinated? Why would it not be coordinated if you just use the aileron?
Because you have other effects
And what would they
acting
be?
on there, like
What would
adverse
they
yaw.
be? Adverse yaw, that's the term I'm looking for.
Okay. Got adverse yaw affecting the airplane.
What is adverse yaw?
Adverse yaw is you have, we'll pretend that we're going into a left-hand turn. The right-hand wing is creating more lift. When the wing creates more lift, the byproduct of lift is drag, so you're going to have more drag.
Okay.
It's also traveling faster than the inside wing. This might be corny, but to show a student, you can have them go into the left-hand turn and actually make a circle, and you could just kind of feel and tell that this one's this one's traveling faster than this hand.
And so what effect does that wing going faster have? Outside wings going faster, what effect does that have?
More speed, more lift, more lift, more drag. Making the nose want to go to the right.
Okay, if you go, a lot of that's been designed out of the airplanes. They've engineered the airplanes to reduce adverse yaw.
Reading something on all the different designs, the notebook is not as organized as I would like it to be. Let me check right. And some engineering is better than others. Yep. The differential ailerons.
Yes. Aileron goes, this one shows it going down more than the aileron going up. They actually have the aileron has more angle up than it has down to reduce that adverse yaw a little bit. If you go like that Cessna and hold the aileron up, and then take it all the way down and look at it. It actually doesn't go down as far as it goes up. And that reduces that adverse yaw a little bit, because I like drawing stuff too. You know, the chord line is what? What's the definition of chord line?
The imaginary line going through the center of the camera of the wing.
It goes right straight from the leading edge
Up to the trailing
to
edge.
the trailing edge.
What am I thinking of?
Camber.
Camber. I'm thinking of mean camber.
Okay, so then we have this angle of attack here, and this being the relative limit. And so you got an angle of attack there. Then you take that wing and you do it like this. And you put that aileron down. The chord line is still leading edge, trailing edge.
Yep, and it increases your angle of attack.
Yes. So you got a greater angle of attack there, increasing the lift out there, just like you said. And when you create lift, you create drag. I never did understand why. Why did this happen? Why does increasing lift increase drag?
To keep it in simple
Good.
terms, I always wondered the same thing too. But it's like when you stick your hand out of the car window and you got a low profile here, and then you stick your hand up, now you create more lift, and then you create more drag. That's one way to show it. But I would, the simple.
That's parasite drag, right?
When you do that, you have more surface area hitting the relative wind.
But how about induced drag? That's the lift. That's the drag created by the creational lift. When this aileron's down, if you look at the airplane like this, and this aileron is down, you're creating more lift out here. And so this is the area of higher pressure and the area of lower pressure. Air's always trying to equalize. So you got this airflow. You have wingtip vortices on your 172 RG. And so the turbulence of this air going from high to low creates some drag around that wingtip. That's some of your induced drag.
Okay.
And that's why you see on the jets now, they put the winglets on.
Yeah, so you don't get that.
They give it somewhere to go that reduces the drag, and they save huge amounts of fuel by doing that on the transport category airplanes. So that's some of your induced drag. Very good. So you have that rudder to compensate for the adverse aileron yaw. If you have that down pat, then there's no use to talk about the shape of the airfoil and the amount of lift created. And you create lift either with angle of attack or with airspeed. So by one question, you work all through all that stuff. You know something about airfoils and creation of lift. Okay, we're going to move up here to, we're not going to get the sectional chart out, but you got to know your airspace.
Okay.
He will ask you about the airspace, I almost guarantee you.
Now, when he asked me about airspace, I do have a lesson plan on airspace. Would it be wise for me to teach the lesson on airspace, or to get the sectional out and go over, you know?
He may ask you to give your student a lesson on airspace. That'd be pretty broad and could take a long time. He's going to probably ask you to get the sectional chart out and say, what's this airspace? And what's this magenta circle around this airport? And you got to be able to tell him G is 1,200 feet above ground level here, on up to continental control zone of 18,000, I can't remember which, goes up to that altitude, and then below 1,200 feet above ground level to the surface is class G, and 1 mile clear clouds, and above that in class E you got 1,000, 2,500 feet, 3 miles in the daytime. he'll ask you in that manner. He might have the Class C at Richmond or Class C airspace out in the Norfolk area. What's that? What does it mean to you? Because to just have you give a lesson on airspace would take a long time. He wants the oral to move along and progress. You will not be asked to present a lesson plan on the airspace. Pre-flight preparation, area of operation 3, got to do pick at least one. And airworthiness requirements, performance limitations, different documents, weather operation systems. You get all your performance data out of the POH for the takeoff and be able to describe density, altitude, and the effects on performance. Airworthiness requirements, he's going to have you go through the maintenance records more than likely, show that the airplane's airworthy. Now they will give the maintenance records to a maintenance inspector, and he'll take them off and go through them a little more thoroughly than you and I could go through them. And he will probably ask you about what inspections you require on the airplane. He's got the book sheet showing where they are and what it is. And we don't have time this afternoon to go through all this stuff. I used to pretty much do this oral in about 2 hours,
Okay.
2.5 hours. Now the guys at ATP that go do their initial instructor rating down in Florida, they talk about 4 and 5, 6 hour orals. That's just too much. They end up doing a check ride in 2 days because the oral takes all in 1 day. It's too much, but you do have to move along to keep it in a time frame that's reasonable, because my thought is you don't want to wear the applicant out in the oil.
Yeah.
Now they all frazzled and tired and beat by the time they get in the airplane. So you do have to move along with this process, and he will ask questions of you, and part of the brief on how to take the practical test. So you're going to start off in this learning section, and you answer the first couple of questions, bang, bang, bang,
So,
pretty good.
because I've noticed that we haven't actually, like, through a section, we haven't covered every, like, 1 through 5. If one of them goes well, 2 of them goes well,
He's just going to touch lightly on it and move along.
Okay.
But if he finds an area of weakness, then he'll stop
Then
there and
he'll-
delve into it a little more thoroughly, and ask some more questions. When you're answering questions, number one, if you don't know, don't
Okay.
BS around. Just say, I don't know, but I know where to find it. You say, okay, we'll find it. Now, if you take all morning to find it, then that's not too good. You gotta know where it is. If you don't know, say, I don't know. I know where to find it. Answer the question that was asked specifically. If he says, why they have a rudder on the airplane, it's to counteract adverse yaw, coordinate the turn, and stop. If he wants you to talk more about it, he'll ask you to talk about it some more. So answer the specific question. Don't ramble on from there, because you're going to be eager to trot it all out and say everything you can on the subject. Answer the specific question. If he wants some more, he'll ask you, or elaborate on that. Tell me more. Or tell me more, what is adverse yaw? And then you go into this discussion we just had. He'll have questions that he asks that will lead to other questions just like that. Why do you have the rudder? About adverse yaw. What's adverse yaw? Takes you back to discussing the airfoil. Then we talk about the creation of lift and induced drag, parasite drag. So one question will lead into others oftentimes. Now, we're going to do this with each one of these other fellows?
I don't think so.
Oh, okay. Okay.
I think
Then we got
it's just-
time.
Yeah, I think it's just you and I, and they're watching.
Okay. Very
I
good.
think they're watching live, and then they also got one camera recording it, so we can go back over it later, closer to our check ride, and just kind of recap.
Okay. Okay, very good. So,
Area of operation 3, pre-flight preparation, gotta pick at least one. Any one of these, he can ask you about. So, we have talked about the airworthiness requirements just a little bit, so. Do you have any questions about performance limitations? You can find the takeoff distance and the
Yeah,
speed.
they're gonna make me do one there, correct? We're gonna do a weight and balance there,
Yes.
we're gonna do a performance, and are they gonna have me plan it? Did you do cross-country?
No.
No, just do the basic performance and weight and
You
balance?
you can call and ask him, or have Jeff call and say, do you want the applicant to have a weight and balance prepared? Because he will know how much fuel is on the airplane when he gets to Richmond, and he can have it already, the weight and balance already prepared before he arrives. You tell him it's your weight, and you can work it for you and the inspector, and have it done, and then he can look at it and say, well, where'd this come from, where'd it come from, where's the
Okay.
data line? You know, how'd they come up with this number? We've talked about certificates and documents. Privileges and limitations of a pilot certificate, that's a good one. What can your private pilot do? Your student that's going for private, your student wants to know, what can I do when I get my private license? What can a private pilot do?
Well, first thing, I would do, because I'm pretty bad at memory, don't remember everything, but I know that's written down, so I would take them straight to it. Private pilot, take them straight to privileges and limitations. That would be 61-113. You can go through it with them. It's been a while since I've been through it.
Can he take some friends to Atlantic City and they pay for the fuel?
Now that's getting into touchy subject. He's not allowed to fly for hire. But if they pay for fuel and he pays for airplane and it's half and half, then that's okay.
Okay. They do cost sharing.
Yeah, cost share. I was
Yeah.
trying to think of the term for it. I was like, I know there's a term for it,
Yeah,
but
you got
as long
the
as half
concept.
and half.
They do cost sharing. Just to split a little hair here on it, if the person is in the photography business and wants to take pictures of stuff from the air and sell them in his business, can a private pilot do that?
See, I had a friend who had a private pilot that was doing photography, and I think he believes I said he could not be pilot in command while he was taking pictures. He had to pay someone else to fly the airplane for him while he was doing the photography part.
He can take the pictures and fly the airplane and sell the pictures for money. His flying is incidental to his business. Aircraft salesman, be a private pilot. He's flying the airplane, demoing the airplane to people, and in conjunction with his business, not as his business. Let's see, radio announcer that flies out there and gives the traffic report in the morning can be a private pilot. He's a radio announcer, and he's just flying as incidental to giving the traffic report on the radio. Okay, that's getting kind of a splitting hair. Somebody, if they have a question about that you're not sure of, you look here and see what privileges and limitations are. I say, well, I'm not sure.
Yep, I haven't been over that since I was a private pilot, but I knew where it was.
Sure, good. Well, that's good that you know where it's at. That's good. That's favorable. And the fact that you don't shoot from the hip, you go get the source is good. You have a question that you're not real sure of, like as a commercial pilot, what can a commercial pilot do?
Can fly for hire, fly for a business.
Okay.
You
Can his friends pay him money to fly them to Atlantic City to go gambling? See what it says under commercial pilot privileges and limitations.
I know there's a fine line. So you don't lose it, you lose it.
Well, once you know where to go find it, in my opinion, that's really good. You go look it up. And if you come across a question you can't answer, then I'll find out for you. You call the FSDO. So you have a guy that's working on his commercial, and he wants to know if he can rent an airplane and to get his buddies to pay him to fly them to Atlantic City to do a little gambling. The answer is no. He can't do that. That's going to be charter.
So that'd be holding out,
Yeah.
correct?
Yes.
I knew there's a fine line, but
If he provides the airplane and he's the pilot, then that's charter. It's not cost sharing anymore. Now all of a sudden he's in a charter business. You got to have a certificate. Not all
Yeah.
Your commercial pilot is in 19.1, 119.1. He can crop dust, he can do banner towing, he can do sightseeing flights within 26 miles of his base. He can do pipeline, power line patrol. But any of this stuff of carrying passengers or freight for compensation or hire, that's 135, you can't do that. Okay. Let's see, electrical system on this airplane. How do you know if you have an alternator failure on this airplane?
far left side, I think there's a low voltage light would
Okay.
come on. I believe it's right behind the yoke on the far left side.
Okay.
It's red, it'll light up red and has low voltage on it. That'd be
Okay. That light illumination,
indication.
what are you gonna tell your student he must do or needs to do? That light illuminates.
If that goes dead, the alternator goes dead, it's gonna automatically kick over to the battery.
Yep.
Which, we got a 24 volt, 60 amp battery. I'm not sure how long it would last with all the equipment running, but to be on the safe side, we'll cut unnecessary equipment off.
Okay.
That way we don't drain the battery dead, or we can keep the battery alive longer. And I'm not sure about this BOH, but I know the old Pipers that I was flying for private, they had a battery life in there saying, or maybe it was the Liberty XL2 that I used to fly. It said that if you lost your alternator and you did this, and this, your battery would last 35 minutes.
Okay.
So at that point you knew, okay, if I did this, and this, and cut this off, and I only left these on, I got 35 minutes to get somewhere and get this fixed.
Okay, you're gonna tell your student to go to the checklist.
Yep.
If anything abnormal occurs and you don't have a memory checklist for it, the only one in this airplane where you have a memorized checklist is engine failure. Okay? Go to the checklist. Cessna has a nice checklist for this. Then the next question that the examiner will ask you after you have correctly answered, go to the checklist. Then your examiner or inspector is going to say, where do you think that checklist is going to take you? Where do you think it's going to, what do you think the checklist is going to have to do? Everything in the airplane is circuit breaker protected.
Yep. It's gonna have you troubleshoot first.
And what are you going to do to troubleshoot? The airplane have an ammeter in it?
Yes.
Got something. So you're going to look at the ammeter, see if
Yep.
the little red light is correct, that you
Mhm.
do not have any power. Okay.
Should be in there.
And I'm looking for the emergency checklist on the thing. -10. And where do you think it's going? You look at the ammeter and it says the ammeter's down on 0. So your alternator has failed. Where do you think the checklist is going to have to do?
going from a flow, it'd probably just take your ray down to the circuit breakers, because they're right next to each other.
Okay,
And see if it's popped or not popped.
okay, if it's popped, what do you gonna have your student do?
You can try resetting it once,
Okay.
then maybe fix it if it pops again. I would tell the student that we're done, don't push that back in, just because you don't want to overheat the circuit.
Okay, and you're gonna turn non-essential equipment off? Want to reduce the electrical load?
Yeah, you can reduce the electrical load.
And you'll land.
Yep, you can come back and land.
Okay, the book here says, for excessive rate of charge, of course, you turn the alternator off, all the circuit breakers are full, non-essential equipment land. Low voltage light, ammeter indicates a discharge. The avionics power switch off, alternator circuit breaker check. Master switch off, that's both sides, then turn it back on.
Recycle it, see if
And
it comes back on.
there's an over voltage relay in here. If you go back in the expanded procedures, there's an over voltage relay that'll reset that if it spiked and knock it off. Doesn't say anything about the circuit breaker here in a low voltage, like I said, then they're putting something out, but it's not enough. But looking at circuit breaker is a good idea. Have your student go to the checklist. Anything abnormal occurs, other than engine failure, look at the checklist, see what it says. And that's the right answer every time. But the inspector will want you to know, as you demonstrated, that you, well, let's see, it's got a circuit breaker, I checked that. I've reduced my electric power and land as soon as practical. They do have a section in here on airport runway, taxiway signs, markings, and lighting. The examiner's got to select at least one area of this. Radio communications and light signals. You'll check that while you're taxiing out and coming and going. Traffic patterns probably be observed while you're doing takeoffs, lands, coming and going from the airport. And then you get back here on one of these pages, says Area of Operation 4, prepare a lesson on a maneuver to be performed during the flight. Examine this on page 44, it's task 4, or area of operation 4. And so he'll ask you for a lesson plan on something. And so you will have a selection of lesson plans prepared already. And the more things that you have a lesson plan for, the better off you're going to be, because you'll have one you can lay right out. Here's a lesson plan. What subject matter are you going to have on your lesson plan? What's going to be your titles or sections of the lesson plan?
I broke all my lesson plans up into a little oddball here. Hand wrote my lesson plans.
Okay, that's good.
I broke all of my lesson plans down into 3 basic phases.
Okay.
What we're doing, so like what it is, if it's a maneuver, if it's a takeoff, if it's a ground reference maneuver, not what it is, the objective of that maneuver, and
Yes.
how we're going to accomplish it.
Okay. Gotta have an objective. Good.
Mm-hmm.
Excellent. Like, why are we doing lazy eights? What the heck is the point
Yeah.
of this? Why are we doing turns about a point? This is silly. I'm gonna take off and land. Well, you gotta be able to hit the runway with the airplane when the wind's blowing, right?
Right.
That's what ground reference maneuvers are all about. It's not so you can take pictures
It's
or
wind-
something from the
Wind
air,
drift control.
but so you can control the path of the airplane over the ground, so you can get to the runway and land on the pavement. So you gotta have an objective. You gotta have, if there's any equipment involved, chalkboard or whiteboard or
Do you,
little model airplane to show.
do you have to have that in your lesson plan?
It'd be good to have
Okay,
what
'cause I
might be
can-
necessary to teach this lesson. As you get into the flight instruction business, that'll be a given, you know what you need
Yeah.
without having it all written down. But,
Cause yeah, that's something I did not do is add,
okay,
what I need, cause I figured that was kind of a given.
okay,
But-
you have an objective, like, you may list, you may not put, you need to do it. There's some elements involved. The wind drift and the ground reference maneuver and control of the aircraft's altitude, bank, and so on. And then your actions, instructor actions, we're going to have pre-flight briefing and talk about the principles of the ground reference maneuver, turn back point, and that's turn across road, a rectangular pattern. And then the student's action is going to be to ask some questions and clarify any misunderstandings. Your job also is to ensure that the student understands the concept before you go out and get in that airplane. Then come down the bottom of every lesson is an evaluation. How did they do? And that's where we come back to, well, was this satisfactory or wasn't there? Is this normal progress? And they're not going to do it to practical test standards for a while. When you have a concept of some parameters, you say, yeah, that's pretty good, that's not so good. And you will pick up real fast on what those parameters are if your student goes out there and does them. You'll say, gee whiz, that's not normal progress, even though you're not real sure what normal progress is right now because you haven't done it. But you were a student yourself one time, and you recall, gee whiz, this was very difficult to do because I got to look at something on the ground and fly the airplane and my instructor's yelling in my ear. It's very demanding on the students. You take all that into consideration and say, well, yeah, you stayed within a couple hundred feet of your altitude. You stayed in the vicinity of your point on the ground. You didn't blow away from it. That's satisfactory. Or your pitch control is erratic. You know, the first demonstration it's a given that's going to be normal progress. They're having trouble. The next couple times you fly with them, then there's got to be hopefully some improvement. If they did better than the first one, under your excellent instruction, that they can learn and do better the next time they do it. And you always come back to, do they understand what the maneuver is all about? Do they understand the concept that the airplane moves with the air mass that it's in? You've got to control the path over the ground when the wind blows. So the next lesson's evaluation will be kind of based on where they were on the first one. Are they doing any better? Are they just as bad off? Have they had some improvement? And usually you see some progress. Very seldom people get hung up and get stuck right there just doing the same thing they did the first time. If that happens, then obviously they don't understand what's going on, or they're not visualizing, seeing what you want them to see, because the average individual is going to be able to make some improvement. It's a normal progress. So that should get better and better. They hit the learning plateaus, particularly with landings. Man, trying to get people to learn to land, and they can't figure out where to flare. And they get hung up there, and they just haven't seen it with their own eyes yet. You talk to them and describe it every way you can, and they can't quite see it with their own eyes. And you just keep going around the pattern, trying to break off, go do something else, so they don't have a bad experience the whole hour that they're out there. Then you come back and land, oh man, this guy flared way too high, or he bumps the nose wheel on the runway and got it. You gotta find a way around that. I tell people, get down there below the treetops, close to the runway, 10 feet, 20 feet. Raise the nose until it looks like it did out the front when the airplane was sitting on the ramp when we first started the airplane. Just raise it till it looks like it did sitting on the ramp. As the airplane comes down, the world comes up around you. Bring it back. Once they see it the first time, then they kind of got it. They don't do it perfect after that, but they got the
They get the
concept.
concept, yeah.
And they see what they're doing. So they will get hung up there and get on a plateau that there's just no improvement from hour to hour for a little bit. And it comes time, you might say, I want you to fly with another instructor to try to help you see this. Because everybody's got a different way of communicating, and everybody learns differently, and everybody responds a little differently to different instructor techniques. And you might give them a fly with another instructor, see if you can get them over that hump, and then they come back to you and finish up. And there's no negative connotation to the instructor that he needs to get somebody else to go. So try it. Just the person's in a spot here and has not got over this plateau of learning, and they need a different presentation, a different take on it to help them improve their perception of what's happening. Pre-flight, they might ask you what you're doing, why you're doing it. You explain what you're doing as you go through the pre-flight, get that checklist out, and do everything you do in the cockpit, make sure all the switches are off, all the lights are off, the fuel's on, turn the battery on, turn the lights on, go run around, look at the lights, turn that off, make sure the mags are off, the keys up on the glare shield, you don't leave the key in the ignition on your pre-flight. You might ask you, what's this or what's that? You look at the aileron, it does go up further than it goes down. They might ask you why that is. You got a grip on that, it's producing average yaw. Might ask you about the trim tab in the elevator. Those control surfaces, and what are you looking for when you're pre-flighting the airplane? Might ask you what kind of fuel can you put in the airplane? 100 low lead, right? Can you put 100 octane in there? Gee, I don't know. It tells you in there, right up there in the front. What kind of oil can you put in this airplane? Well, most people carry a quart or two around in the back of the airplane, but you need a quart and there's none in the airplane. What kind of oil can I put in this airplane? It tells you. Those kind of things they ask you about. If you look at the prop, it's got that twist in it. You're going to look at the prop. I always ask people, why is the prop shaped that way? Why it's got a big fat wing airfoil here at the hub and a little bitty skinny wing out here at the tip, and it looks like it's got a twist in it. Why is that?
To produce even thrust throughout the entire wing.
Okay, why would it be uneven? If the thing just sit out there is like that, the whole prop is the same angle. It's got that twist in it. Why isn't it just straight out there?
No.
You know what it is. We talked about it.
Yep.
How do you create lift? There's two ways you create lift. Or increase lift. Airflow, airspeed,
Airspeed,
angle of
and angle of
attack.
attack.
Okay, the tip of that
I
prop
was
is going
traveling
faster.
faster, traveling faster than the inside of it, so therefore the inside of it to keep up has a higher angle of attack.
There you go.
Yep.
That's it. It's got a high-speed airfoil out there at the tip. Got slow speed, big old fat wing up near the hub with a high angle of attack. Skinny little angle of attack out at the tip. Interesting to look at different airplanes out on the ramp that have different shaped wings. Let's see, some of these airplanes, particularly the low-wing airplanes.
Have a dihedral.
Yeah, what's the dihedral all about?
It's for, I always understood that it was for stability.
Okay.
So when, one wing bangs a little bit, this wing's flat and it's, you know, how to explain it? But it always want to tend back to come back, almost like a seesaw.
That's correct.
I can't.
That's, you have the concept.
Yeah, I can't.
But you need to be able to articulate it a little bit better.
Yeah.
Why does it do that when you got, let's do it this way, we got this wing is flat now, flatter, and this one's up like this. What's going on here? Why is this wing going to pick up? It will do exactly what you said, it will raise that wing back up to level one. Why does it do that? You got a diagram in your book about dihedral? They draw better than I do.
Yeah, I think, let me see, it'd be in the other book, wouldn't be in the flight instructor book.
I'd be in that Jepson book. I'm not that familiar with the Jepson. The handbook of aeronautical knowledge, it's in there for sure. This one,
maybe in that one, but I
this
think it's
talks
gonna
more
be
about,
in this one.
it'll be in there, I guarantee.
Yeah.
This one talks more about actually flying the airplane. This talks about aeronautical.
Introduction, principles of flight, aerodynamics of flight.
And I have a section in there on dihedral elevation.
Dynamic and stability is 413. Dutch roll into C's.
Does the book have an index in it? In the
Yeah.
back here? That's a quick way to help you find stuff. See if dihedral is in the index.
$4.16.
There you go. Always go to the index there, that'll help you find stuff quick.
413, 15, 16. Dihedral right here. So this is, even though it's down, I have a greater angle of attack. Greater angle of attack, more lift.
Yeah, so it creates a little more lift, so it lifts that wing up. Brings it.
Involves a balance of lift created by the wing's angle of attack on each side of the aircraft's longitudinal axis. If a momentary gust of wind forces one wing to rise and the other to lower, the aircraft banks. The aircraft is banked without turning, the tendency to side slip or slide downward toward the lowered wing occurs. Since the wings have dihedral, the air strikes the lower wing at a much greater angle of attack than the higher wing. An increased angle of attack with the higher wing creates more lift the lower wing creates more lift than the higher wing. Increased lift cause the lower wing will begin to rise up.
Okay, very good. Very good. And you'll notice low wing airplanes have greater dihedral. They have the drawing of the high wing, but if you look out there on the ramp and look at different airplanes, you'll see that your Cessna has hardly any dihedral. It's very, very slight. Where the low wing, the Cherokee, has more. And Cessna had an ad years and years ago. They'd say, high wing stability, ask any bird. I've never seen a low wing bird.
Yeah, there is no low wing bird.
Okay, this has the pendulum effect here. That weight concentrated under the wing tends to come back to center. Where this is the weight's up higher, and it doesn't do that. So this needs the dihedral to give it that stability. The other way to look at this is lift acts perpendicular to the wing. Okay, so now you got a vertical component on the left, a little horizontal component. We're over here, the vertical component's going over here. Horizontal component's going that way. So you got a greater vertical component in the lift here, pulling that way up. Pretty much same thing as that. So it creates more lift because it has the side slip, greater angle of attack.
That would be the same thing down here with the keel effect.
Keel effect, yeah.
And weight
Yeah, yep.
distribution. serve a fuselage weight acts as a pendulum, returning the airplane to its original attitude.
There you go. Just as you travel around and look at other airplanes on the ramp out there, you probably got a good selection around here. See what their wings look like. Why they do that with the wing on that airplane? Some of them got the Piper has the great big fat airfoil, classic shaped airfoil. They've got a lot of front area,
Yeah, it does.
a lot of parasite drag. The Cessnas have a little more aerodynamic wing, a slimmer wing with less frontal area, stalls a little more rapidly and viciously than the old Piper. You notice that between the Cherokee and the Cessnas? The old Cherokee, you pull that thing up there and it rumbles and shakes a
Yeah, it
little
will
bit.
buffer.
You gotta really work at it to get the nose to drop. Where the Cessna, man, it'll poof.
Yeah.
Well, it has to do with the shape of the wing. This guy got drag all that parasite drag through the air. This guy's got a more efficient wing. This one might take a little shorter runway to get off, take off the wing. That's a slower speed wing than this one. Anyway, then you put the flaps on it, you take the big high-speed airplane, got that very slim airfoil, and what they do, they put some of those Fowler flaps on it for taking off and landing, and they put the droop on the front of the nose like that. They make it look like an old-timey wing. You know, those old airplanes have a wing shaped like this.
Mm-hmm.
They had all the flying wires connected to the other biplanes in the other wing.
Yep.
Oh, front area on this stinking thing you gotta pull through the air. That's gonna be a very slow airplane, but then it takes off real short.
Yep.
Takes off slow. So everything's a compromise between the high-speed wing and the slow-speed wing for a short takeoff and landing. But this guy cruises real fast. So they put flaps and stuff on the big jets to give them a slow-speed
The
wing
best
for
of both
taking off.
worlds.
Yes.
They have the best of both worlds there.
So, yeah, look at airplanes and see the different shapes of wings out there. It's interesting stuff. Traffic patterns. You're approaching, where you guys go to do your takeoffs and landings? You go to
Here.
Wakefield or?
I haven't been to Wakefield. I normally just do them here if it's not too busy.
Okay.
I've only been to West Point, across the York
Okay,
River there,
yeah.
but that's the only place I've done other than here at the practice landings.
Okay, when we go from here to West Point.
Or West Point, yeah, West Point.
Yeah. 2, 8, and 10, I think. They have those other paved areas there, but they're not usable runways anymore.
Yep, you've been there.
Yeah.
Exactly what it looks like.
They're landing, the wind is blowing this way, they're landing on runway
10.
10. And you're coming up down here. How are you gonna get in the traffic pattern for runway 10?
I always, this is what I would tell my students, because I always tell myself this, is just keep it simple. I've seen a lot of people, when I'm out there flying, they'll be here, they'll want to go up and around, 45 is the downwind, and do crazy stuff, or a teardrop. I would always say, if you're here, you're almost to the 45 of the upwind, so just come out a little bit, 45 of the upwind, and then go upwind or crosswind, downwind, pace fine.
Okay.
Keep it simple.
Okay, that's very good. That's what I have done. I flew out there 20 years in industry for one with the FAA, flew light aircraft the whole time, didn't have to do any big high performance fancy airplanes. White Twins, 400 series Cessnas, Navajo, Aztecs, all those other companies. And went to a whole lot of uncontrolled airports. I did that a lot. I thought that's just for all your good reason. Come in there, come close here.
Yeah.
Everybody can see you're down at traffic pattern altitude. You can see them, they can see you.
Yeah.
Everybody taking off is coming out and making a 45.
Yeah.
Okay. In the Aeronautical Information Manual and the regulation, it says not much about it. It says you're going to make all turns to the left unless otherwise indicated by the symbols on the ground. Doesn't have any provision for this in the reg or in the AIM, all they show is the 45 into the downwind for traffic pattern entry. So, that's a good one to me. A lot of people will argue and get mad and angry and red in the face talking about traffic pattern entries. They really get emotional about it. I don't understand. But some people have very strong feelings about it. But you'll see the people that say, let's fly over the airport 500 feet above traffic pattern altitude. I come over the airport, I look the windsock, I can see the traffic, I check the runway out. Good idea. I'm gonna come out here, and I'm gonna come over here, I'm gonna make a turn to make a 45 into the downwind. Well, unfortunately, right where most people in the light aircraft come out here, now they're gonna do it this way. To do that, they turn here, they're going right head on into the traffic out there where a King Air or Cessna Citation would be on the downwind.
Yep, higher and out further.
Yeah, so you need to come out here quite a ways before you make that turn to go back in.
To me, that's time.
Yeah, so it takes time. This works good. Put the crosswind leg right off the approach into the runway instead of out here, because anybody taking off is gonna go underneath you.
Go underneath you.
No conflict, no problem, even if they're staying in the pattern.
We always say just go fly over the numbers.
So that works good, but some people will take exception to that and argue with you. Don't get in an argument with the inspector. Okay?
Yes, sir.
Don't start a fight in the police station, because the police almost always win. So, if he likes it this way, say, oh, yes, sir, okay, I understand. It doesn't say just 45 in the downwind in the reg or the AIM and has no other entry. I heard this, you know, I must have been listening to that. Smooth that over, move on. Because people really get angry about it, and it's unbelievable how agitated some people get discussing traffic pattern entries. The whole idea is you need to be down at pattern altitude where everybody can see everybody. You can see them, they can see you. If you're high and looking down, the other aircraft get lost in the ground clutter. Okay? You need to be down here at the same altitude everybody else in traffic patterns at. Now you can see them. If you get too high, you lose them in the ground clutter. If they're looking up at you, they have a little better chance of seeing you than you have of seeing them. But for maximum collision avoidance, traffic pattern altitude before you get in the pattern. A mile or two away from the downwind, be down at traffic pattern altitude. And if you're going to come out here and do this, you can come out here and make a little bigger circle back in. It does give you a chance to look the airport over.
Yeah.
So there's benefits to all different ways.
Yeah, that's one thing. If I don't, like going to my diversions, never knew, like private, never knew what airport I was going to.
Yeah.
And you know, some of them, the ATIS would be real choppy, so you couldn't tell where the winds are coming from because they don't take care of it or anything. So that's all I was able to fly over the field first.
Okay. Okay. So you can discuss traffic patterns knowledgeably and the benefits, the pros and cons of different entries, and you'll figure out which way the inspector leans pretty quick and go with flow. Go with flow. Do you have a lesson plan on short field approach and landing?
I do.
Oh, hang on, let's talk about the short field.
Okay. There's soft field, short field takeoff. You want takeoff and landing?
Let's just do the landing right now.
Okay. Short field takeoff. Soft field. Where is my... Normal approach landing. Where's my soft field landing? My goal is to, I have all my lesson plans written out like this. My goal is by the end of next week is to have them actually finalized like the other ones.
Yes, have as many of those done as you can so that when he asks for one, You got it.
Yeah, I know I have
If you
it.
have to sit there and write one up, go ahead and do it, but it'll be more thorough, more complete, and you'll get your oil done a little quicker, and you'll get, whew, that's done. If you have it ready made.
I'm not sure why I would have, maybe I stuck it in the wrong, their soft field takeoff.
Hey, tell me about a short field takeoff, let's do a lesson on that, what's the objective here?
Okay, the objective is to develop positive and precise control of the airplane, attitude and airspeed so that takeoff and climb performance results in the shortest ground roll and the steepest angle of climb.
Very good.
And the first word it is the maximum performance takeoff normally from a short area restricted by obstacles or obstructions.
Okay.
So normally I would do this on the board.
Show me what you do if you're gonna tell
Okay.
the nice inspector about a short field takeoff.
Actually, yeah, markers up there. We got pink and blue. Yep, they were.
Oh, that's gonna be pretty.
Yep, they were. Okay, so we already talked about what it is and the objective, so I'm not gonna go ahead and write
Okay,
that on the
very
board.
good.
But now we do need to talk about how we're gonna do this. Alright, so how? We're gonna break it up into 3 phases so it's simpler.
Okay.
More simple to we're gonna break it up to take off, roll, the initial climb, or the lift off, I'm sorry, take off, roll, lift off, and then initial climb. So first we'll talk about, your takeoff roll. So, it's important when we're taxiing out to the runway that we try to use every brick we can.
Okay.
So, this is our runway. And that's our taxiway. A lot of people make a mistake because they'll come out and they'll go ahead and take off. And they'll start their takeoff roll here. Well, you know, they've just eaten up 50 feet maybe that they could have used. So what we want to try to do is we want to try to come out here, may have to back taxi a little bit depending on the airport, and try to get every break you can and come to a stop with the nose wheel center on the center line.
Okay.
So upon doing that, now we just gained ourselves probably an extra 50 feet, had to back taxi a little bit, but no big deal. So every airplane's different for procedures. So we're going to want to go through the manual and figure out what we need
Okay.
configuration-wise for a short field takeoff. In our airplane, it's 10 degrees of flaps. For the short
I just looked at it and it said none.
Maybe we'll have to look it up. I maybe think about the other airplanes, the Pipers. Should be normal procedures.
It says, short field takeoff, wing flap 0.
Wing flap 0, okay. Must have been the Pipers that were 10.
Now, you gotta have that right now when you talk to
Okay.
the inspector. You know what, this is the airplane you're gonna give your lesson in to him. I know, as a good instructor, you're gonna tell your student, and it's good, that you did, that some airplanes are gonna use some flaps. This airplane
Could
does
use
not.
none.
But some of them will use 10 degrees of flaps. But you're trying to teach them to fly airplanes in general, but on this day, you're teaching them to fly this airplane. You're
Yes,
teaching
sir.
the inspector to fly this particular one. and you probably know more about the airplane than he does, makes it a little more comfortable. Unless he instructed in one way back when.
How's it going? You sitting in or you still in the chair?
I'm sitting here.
Okay.
They're all sleeping, I bored them to tears, right?
Okay, so we talked about using every brick. So I want you to get back here to every brick and we line up center line on the runway. We're going to hold the brakes firmly. We're going to start applying a little bit of power. Now, there's technique versus procedure. My technique is I run it up a little bit of power before I go to full power, and make sure all the engine instruments are in the green.
Okay.
You know, that way if you have a problem, you know before you've revved all RPMs, before you've given it all RPMs. If everything looks good, then go ahead and give it all RPMs.
Okay, good.
Wait for it to stabilize, and then you can release the brakes. So we're going to hold brakes. The engine and instruments check.
Good.
So what's going to happen as we release those brakes, we're going to have a high amount of torque and P factor going to want to take us to the left, more than a normal takeoff would, because now instead of adding power smoothly, so it's a smooth transition, now we have it full in, we've just released the brakes. So it's going to want to shoot off to the left more than likely, so be prepared for that. And to counteract that, you're going to need a rudder to stay on center line. Okay. On the side note, I don't know if this is important for teaching, but I put in here, has not been established that this procedure will result in this shorter takeoff roll. That holding the brakes.
Okay.
Yeah. Holding the brakes has not actually been proven to give you a shorter takeoff roll. It's just a procedure that we do.
Very good observation. POH says hold the brakes.
Yes.
So we're going to go fly, do that in this airplane. But that's an excellent observation, shows that you have a grasp of the subject. And a little extra knowledge there, that's good.
Okay, so liftoff speed for us is 55. We're not going to hold the airplane on the runway, but we're going to try not to rotate until we reach VX.
Okay.
Okay? So as we approach, you're looking at me. Oh, I thought you were looking at me like I did something wrong.
Don't pay attention to him. He's not going to be there next Thursday.
Okay. I really need to get this airplane down. I want to double check my speed here. Normal climb out 70 to 80. Short field takeoff flap 63, 63. Okay, so just verifying that I was correct here.
Okay. And during your discussion, I'm going to let you finish, but I'll interrupt here briefly
Okay.
to say that depending on what the inspector's technique is, methodology is, he may say, when you say, because of the torque and the prop factor, the aircraft's going to go to the left when you release the brakes to be prepared to ask right rudder during the takeoff roll. He may say, what's prop factor? He may go off on that, because here's an opportunity to discuss something that he wants to make sure you have a grasp of, and you would tell him what it is, and then you got to come back to it. But it does get you off your feet a little bit, because you're on a roll here, talking about your short field. They may interrupt you and ask you,
So
what's prop factor, what's torque? And then when you get to VX, he may ask you, what is VX? Give me a definition.
okay.
I didn't do that. I let people finish unless they were just really way off the mark.
Okay. So So I would just,
But he may ask you questions while you're right in the middle of your spiel, and it does set you off back a little bit.
okay, you know, so in that case, you could talk about torque, and you could
Yeah.
talk about P factor, and then you say, you know, that's the angle of climb.
And we're gonna talk about those in a minute, but go ahead.
Okay, so then as we approach VX, which would be 63, we want to smoothly and firmly lift off, which is also called rotating. So we're going to apply a little bit of back pressure, get the nose wheel off the ground. It's important to understand that we're not trying to force the airplane to fly. We're going to let the airplane fly.
Okay.
Now, at this point, we would have done normal takeoffs. So I would expect them to understand what rotating is and how to apply just a little bit of back pressure. But here on a short field takeoff, we're probably going to need more back pressure because now we're trying to maintain VX. We're trying to climb out at 63, so we're going to have a higher angle of attack than we would on a normal takeoff. So it's going to, your sight picture is going to be a little different. So we're going to accelerate more rapidly as we lift off if we don't bring that nose up, and if we don't stay on VX, we're not going to get the best climb angle that we can.
Okay.
So we're doing this so we can normally clear an obstacle, which would be, you know, somewhere out here. It could be a building, could be a tree, could be anything, could be a tower. But once we've cleared our obstacle, so we smoothly rotate it, we're maintaining VX as we rotate out. The obstacle is 50 feet, which is the normal, what people use to practice.
It's an FAA tree. It grows to exactly 50 feet.
It grows to
tall.
exactly 50 feet. So once we clear our obstacle, depending on how high it is, then we can lower the nose and go to DY or cruise climb.
Okay. Okay, now we're going to ask for a definition of VX. Very, very good presentation.
Thank you. And
What is VX?
VX is best rate of climb.
No?
Best angle, I had the right person,
Best
best angle of climb.
Yeah, best angle. What's the difference between the best angle and the best rate?
Difference between VX and VY. VX is going to give you the greatest altitude and the shortest amount of distance. VY is going to give you the greatest distance for a given amount of time.
Greatest altitude.
Greatest altitude for a given amount of time.
Good, good. Okay. All very good. I do question waiting to 63 to rotate. Stalling speed is 50 knots.
Mm-hmm.
So you got 13 knots above the stalling speed, it's ready to go. I would let the raise the nose a little bit, let the airplane fly off the ground. You normally rotate at 55?
Yeah.
Your procedures? Again, I don't want to be contrary to what your procedures are at this school, but I would say rotate like you normally do, let the airplane accelerate to 63. By the time you lift off, it'll probably be at 63. But if it gets up at, when you're above the stall speed like that, on those little tires, you know, your little tire footprint's that big,
Mm-hmm.
and it's light on that, now you don't have real positive steering with the nose wheel and the friction of the tires on the runway, but you're not up in the air and flying with flight controls either. It's a little bit awkward, and you've landed in a crosswind or taken off in a crosswind where it gets up there,
There it gets
a little bit supported by the
awkward.
wing and
Yeah.
a little bit by the tires, and you want to get through that. So I would stick with the rotation personally. The FAA isn't going to, if the POH doesn't say what to do, and the airplane flying handbook doesn't have anything more specific on it, then that's going to be adequate. They might want to talk to you about it a little bit, but they can't say that, nope, that's unsatisfactory, because the POH doesn't say. Let me come see exactly what they say. On the takeoff, doesn't say when to rotate. In the expanded short takeoff, it has very little to say about it. It does say on the, I just saw it here. it does say that at 2550 or less, you can use flaps for takeoff to reduce the ground roll. But if 63 is the speed with the wing flaps up, then what's the best angle to climb with 10 degrees flaps? I don't think you're told what that speed would be. So, well, I just looked at it. Let's just see what the book says. This is your Bible here on this airplane.
Mm-hmm.
You go to this, and this is the way you fly this airplane unless you have a really, really good reason for doing it different. Like, I can't think of an example right, but it certainly isn't because old John said this is the way to do it. You know, you go with what the book says, and the FAA will be happy and you'll be safe. Okay, all this stuff is, and they amplify, taxi, before takeoff, power check, crossing the takeoff, flap settings. Normal and short fields are accomplished with landing flap 0. Ground obstacle, 63 knots is the speed. Soft field, blah, blah, blah. At takeoff weights of 25, 50 pounds or less, 10 degrees of flaps may be used if desired for minimum ground run. Okay, minimum ground run with the flaps. But you lose that advantage in the climb because you don't know what the best angle to climb is. They don't tell you what the best angle is with 10 degrees of flaps. And so this is the procedure. This is the procedure. Because we assume an obstacle for practical test purposes. We assume the obstacle. Okay, good.
Okay.
I would rotate a little sooner myself. I don't think in
Rotate
inspectors.
smoothly at 55. You probably won't lift off too close to 63. You don't want to yank it off the runway because you don't want to see that critical angle attack right off the runway.
I hinted on that, letting the airplane fly instead of you trying to make it fly.
Yeah. That's a
Continue
good
that
term.
rotation, maintaining that speed.
Yep, that's a good term, let the airplane fly. My personal technique is soon as I don't stop on a runway myself, because I think you got to overcome the inertia of the airplane being at a dead stop, so it takes a little bit of time to. So I just get to the end and I go. But we're going to do what the book says. It says hold the brakes.
Yeah.
This is the. Here's an exception to the rule, right? The POH says hold the brakes and get full power before you release the brakes. Old John says I just turn the thing around, get on the center line, and let it rip. I don't stop. I don't want to have that inertia of a dead stopped airplane to accelerate off the flat spot on the tires. But I'll put in a little bit of back pressure right off the bat, just enough to extend the nose strut just a little bit. You know, when you add all that power, it's compressing the nose strut, you feel it. Some of your energy's going that way.
Mm-hmm.
You want to get it up where it's going this way. So I raise the nose up just enough to extend the strut. The cowling moves up just a little bit. Then you hold what you've got. And the airplane, as it accelerates, the elevator becomes more and more effective. And you can just squeeze it back a little bit at 55 and it'll fly when it's ready to fly. My stepfather taught me to fly. He's old Army Air Corps World War II instructor pilot. He says, make it look like a climb. Raise your nose till it looks like it's climbing, and the thing will come off the ground and go. I raise the nose slightly, and it seems like if you start your takeoff roll and then bring the nose up just a little bit, you can almost feel it. Lunge forward is a little excessive term for a 172 RC, but you can feel it accelerate, I think. But rotating at 63, I don't think anybody can do anything other than discuss the virtue of being that high above the stalling speed, still on the rubber, on the tires, on the road, or on the pavement. And it's a matter of discussion and not a matter of the test is over, that's done. Just instructors talking together about technique.
Yeah.
It doesn't say it in the book. It doesn't say it in the FAA's guidance. Then it's just somebody's opinion. And that isn't worth a whole lot. Okay, very good, very good. Very good dissertation. You've obviously done this before. Talked about it before, right?
Yep.
The learning process, you haven't talked much about that. The stuff on the learning process we talked about earlier on.
That I have not covered
Yeah,
much. I need to go back over that a lot.
But your discussion here is very good. Is obviously practiced. you're
The
done.
lesson plans and teaching I feel okay with, it's the other stuff that we did earlier. That
Yeah.
is a little, that
So
needs
work on it a little bit. Work on just saying the words out loud about what's a perception, what's an insight, what are some restrictions to learning or obstacles to learning, and then you'll be more comfortable talking about it. Nice presentation on a short film.
okay, thank you. And I mean, I went into a lot more with PTS standards, common errors and stuff like that, so.
What are some of the common areas?
Failure, we talked about one. I tried to incorporate them, so one of them was the very first one, failure to use all the runway. And then, see, another one would be, failure to trim
Oh,
the
yeah.
airplane for takeoff.
It's a big one.
Premature liftoff.
What's wrong with that?
What's wrong with that is, you won't, you could settle back down to the runway, like if the airplane's not ready to fly. Now you've just eaten up whatever section of runway that could have been used for taking off. Or if it does fly and you premature lift off, now your climb is not going to be as good. And now you've still eaten up a certain amount of length that you could be at a greater climb.
Very good. Could stall the airplane.
Could
You're off the ground a little bit too slow, you pull up a little bit because you want to get a little higher, and put the G load on the airplane. Just takes a little bit, when you're right there on the cusp of the stall, like you stall right there, smack back down the runway. Some airplanes, high altitude, hot day, you can get the thing off the ground and hangs there in ground effect, too low, too slow. Hangs there in ground effect because the nose is way up, you got all this drag, induced and parasite drag out there, and the airplane doesn't accelerate. But you can't put the nose down much, it'll hit the ground. And people go off the end of the runway like that in ground effect. Then, not just little airplanes, they've done it in big ones. Over-rotating in a 727 or a 747, and man, it just kills the performance. So that's an excellent point. Good point. Okay. This was the lesson we chose for the lesson plan, and after that, the inspector may ask you about other maneuvers, or he may say, wow, that's pretty good, I think I'm going to go for it. Be prepared to do that with every maneuver in here. Discuss the finer points, just like you did.
I think I have a lesson plan for every one of them, but I don't think, like these are my final copies in the nice different colors because it's easy for me to see. But I think I still have some, like climbs and climbing turns are still in a rough draft form.
Yeah.
But I have to put it in a final copy, but
Okay. Very good.
still working on that.
Let's see here. Let's talk about a lazy 8. Tell me about a lazy 8. And each time that we talk about a maneuver, you can assume that I'm your student and we have progressed to the point where we're going to introduce this maneuver. You have assigned me after the next lesson to read about lazy 8s in this case, and I have read my section in the book about lazy 8, and we're doing a pre-flight briefing.
Okay. Let me find my maneuver here in lazy 8s.
It's a tough maneuver.
It is a tough maneuver.
FAA makes it worse.
I read that article in the Flying magazine, or one of the magazines, the guy just really beating the FAA up on the way they do it. If you do it with a steep bank, it's wing overs back to back. It's easy, it's a lot more fun.
Yeah.
Things happen
Doesn't show
faster.
controllability of the aircraft though.
This is a tough maneuver, and I think this is the way it ought to be done, because you really have to have some touch and feel for the machine. And so what is the objective of this maneuver?
I've developed coordination of the controls through a wide range of airspeeds.
Yes.
Because you're going to go from maneuvering speed all the way down to almost stall speed, back to
Yes.
maneuvering speed, all in a very short amount of time.
With your attention diverted outside
With
the
your
airplane.
tension diverted inside and outside,
Yeah.
and you're changing control pressures constantly. So,
The objective here, again, people say, why in the world are we doing lazy eights? Or Chanel, I'm never gonna do one after I get my commercial, I'm never gonna instruct, I'm going to the airlines or whatever. Why are we doing this? It's to develop those skills that you just mentioned so well, and it's a means of evaluating those skills. That's all it is. Okay, very good.
now here, I've been debating myself on some of these maneuvers of whether I should try to draw them on the board or show them in the book, because I find lazy eights are pretty hard one to draw on the whiteboard.
Yeah, yes they are. No, using the textbook drawing is excellent because they do such a good job with it. There's no problem with using that, because it is difficult to draw on a board, you know, more wrapped up in trying to draw it than explain it.
Yeah, that's what I kind of figured out. I figured, I mean, I can normally draw pretty well on the board, but for some reason, lazy eight, the way the airplane is banked is hard to draw.
Yep.
So,
Use that diagram, tell me about lazy eight.
okay, so what it is, it's 280 degrees turns in the opposite direction while making a climb and a descent. The objective is to be a symmetrical pattern.
Okay.
So this is what we're actually going to do, but if you look from the top down, it will look like an 8. That's how it
Okay.
gets its name, 8.
Okay.
Gets its name by lazy is because you're not trying to force the airplane to do anything. I guess the old way was you could pull it back and
yank
speed
and
bank,
bank.
yank and bank. Not so much anymore.
Not lazy anymore. No, not lazy anymore. Okay.
So, and then we already talked about the purpose of this is to develop a feel of the
Yeah.
airplane through a wide range of airspeeds.
Okay.
So you're going to enter maneuver at level flight here. We're going to be at maneuvering speed, which for us is 106. So you're going to be at or below maneuvering speed. I don't think our manufacturers recommend the speed for this, for a lazy 8.
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, you're gonna,
I'm
okay. So once we're established, and our area is clear, we're in level flight, and we're at or below maneuvering speed, we're going to pick 2 points, or pick a point off of our wing, whichever direction we want to turn first.
Okay.
That's going to be our 90-degree point. You can try to pick a 45-degree point or a 135-degree point or even a 180, but I find that's kind of hard to do. It's a little difficult at times. I try to do best estimation of the 45-degree point instead of, flying around for 20 minutes trying to find all, 4 different points that I can use.
Yes.
So it's lazy because we're not going to be very forceful on the controls. We're just going to, when we find our 90-degree point or below maneuvering speed, we're just going to ease back pressure on the elevator and bring that nose up ever so slightly. As we're doing this, we're going to be dissipating airspeed. As we dissipate airspeed in the climb, as a student, we probably would have talked about this before. Higher angle of attack, lower airspeed, the more we're going to feel the turning tendencies, torque, P factor, asymmetrical, slipstream. So the more right rudder we're going to need. So as we're bringing back pressure back, we're going to have to be increasing that right rudder ever so slightly. As airspeed decreases, the more right rudder you're going to need. So now we got to decide, at this point we'll know whether we're going to go left or right. So let's just say we're going to go right first. Torque and P factor, as we pitch up, we need to start going into a bank. Torque and P factor are going to want to take you to the left, so you might actually have to to throw a little right aileron in there and help it out. But once we're established, you might actually need some opposite aileron as we're going into a turn. And at 45 degrees, we're looking for our max pitch up attitude and approximately 15 degrees of bank. So max pitch up attitude, I believe it's going to be 15. We're looking for 15 degrees or roughly around 15 degrees. I'm getting distracted there. As I can see an ambulance outside through the picture. So here we're coming in straight and level flight. We're starting our pitch up and we're going to start our bank. At the 90-degree point, we should have about 30 degrees of bank. We should be at minimum airspeed, which is going to be looking for just a little bit above stall speed.
Okay.
We don't want to stall, but we want to be just a little bit before it. And this should be our maximum altitude gain. So you should gain about 300 feet if you do it correctly. And then upon reaching that 90 degrees, we're going to notice that the airplane is just going to want to, even though you've got back pressure in, you got right rudder in, without you really doing anything, the nose is going to drop.
Yes.
It's going to, we call it, just let it slice to the horizon. You're going to let it slice, let the nose slice.
Yes.
So as we're doing this, you might need to release a little bit of right rudder pressure. You might have to release your back pressure because now we're trying to get back to our original altitude. So depending on how much we gain and how much we have to lose, and we're trying to get back to our original airspeed. So if we start at 106 and we're at 45, we're trying to get back to 106. All while watching our 90-degree point because that's where we have to roll out.